The silence of deep space shattered as massive shadows emerged from the void between galaxies. Admiral Taemin stood frozen on the bridge of his flagship, watching something that defied all understanding crawl into reality. These weren't ships, in any sense his military training had prepared him for. They were living nightmares wrapped in metal and darkness, pulsing with an organic rhythm that made his skin crawl. "Admiral, sensors are going crazy," whispered Communications Officer Hyojin, her hands shaking as she tried to make sense of the readings. "These things, they're the size of moons, but they're moving like predators." The first Void Hunter vessel resembled a massive jellyfish crossed with a mechanical spider, its translucent body revealing twisted machinery and organs working in horrible harmony. Tendrils of energy reached out from its core, touching the nearest planet. Within seconds, the world's surface began to crack and peel away like old paint, its very essence being consumed and absorbed into the creature's bulk. "Dear gods," Taemin breathed as he watched 17 billion lives vanish without even a scream reaching the vacuum of space. The planet didn't explode or burn. It simply ceased to exist, leaving behind only empty space and the satisfied glow of the hunter's feeding organs. Lieutenant Sung-ho burst onto the bridge, his uniform torn and his face pale with terror. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from every sector. The Zephyrian homeworld, their entire psychic network just went silent. Every telepath in their civilization screamed at once and then nothing." The tactical display lit up with chaos. Red warning symbols bloomed across the galaxy map like a spreading disease. The mighty Krex Empire, masters of technology, who had ruled the outer spiral arms for 10,000 years, were broadcasting desperate evacuation orders. Their greatest dreadnoughts, ships that could crack planets and bend space itself, were being torn apart by creatures that seemed to exist partially outside normal reality. "How many are there?" Taemin asked, though he dreaded the answer. "We've counted at least 50 major vessels, but sir—" Intelligence Officer Min Jong paused, double-checking her readings. "They're not just ships. Each one appears to be a living entity. They're hunting in packs, coordinating their attacks across light years of space simultaneously." The main screen flickered to life with incoming transmissions from across the galaxy. The proud Thrakari warrior chieftains, beings who had never retreated from any battle in their 1,000-year history, were abandoning their fortress worlds. Their massive war barges, bristling with plasma cannons and void missiles, fled like frightened children before the advancing darkness. General Wu Jin of the Thrakari Defense Corps appeared on screen, his scaled face twisted with shame and disbelief. "Council Fleet, this is Wu Jin. We cannot fight these things. Our weapons pass through them like shadows, but their attacks strip our shields and armor away like tissue paper. We're retreating to the inner systems." More reports flooded in. The crystalline Vorthan had tried to hide their homeworld in a pocket dimension, only to watch in terror as the Void Hunters reached through space itself to drag them back into normal reality. The insectoid hive queens of Zerion, masters of biological warfare, found their deadliest plague weapons absorbed and turned back against them with interest. "Sir, emergency council session is starting now," reported Hyojin, patching through the holographic conference system. The chamber filled with the desperate faces of a dozen alien species, their usual political posturing replaced by naked fear. Chancellor Yo Jin of the Galactic Council tried to maintain order, but her voice cracked with strain. "Citizens of the galaxy, we face an unprecedented threat. Our combined military assets are proving insufficient." "Insufficient?" roared Commander Do Hyun of the Outer Rim Defense Force. "These things are eating our reality. My entire fleet fired everything we had at one of their smaller vessels. The weapons just disappeared into it. Like feeding a hungry animal, the conference erupted into chaos as species after species reported the same horrifying pattern. The Void Hunters didn't just destroy their enemies, they consumed them, growing larger and more powerful with each victory. Worse, they seemed to learn from each encounter, adapting their tactics and abilities to counter whatever resistance they faced." "How long do we have?" asked someone from the crowd of terrified voices. Navigation Officer Kyung-soo consulted his star charts, his face grim. "At their current rate of advancement, they'll reach the core worlds within 6 standard months, but..." Sir, they're not moving in a straight line. They're spiraling inward, consuming everything in their path. If they maintain this pattern—" He didn't need to finish. Everyone understood. The galaxy itself was becoming their feeding ground, and there was nowhere left to run. These ancient predators had awakened from their sleep between the stars, and all of galactic civilization trembled before their hunger. The emergency session continued through the night, but no one had answers. How do you fight something that exists partially outside reality? How do you destroy creatures that grow stronger by devouring their enemies? The greatest minds in the galaxy worked desperately, but deep down, everyone felt the same creeping certainty. They were prey, and the eel hunt had already begun. The edge of known space erupted with the blue-white flashes of ships dropping out of hyperspace. Captain Jinwoo gripped the command chair of his flagship as the new soul materialized alongside hundreds of other vessels. These weren't the sleek, elegant ships favored by most galactic civilizations. Human ships looked different, angular, practical, covered in external armor plating and weapon systems that seemed bolted on as afterthoughts. "Sir, we're getting multiple sensor pings," reported Navigator Haewon from her station. "Looks like we've walked into a war zone." Through the bridge's main viewport, Jinwoo could see the aftermath of recent battles. Debris fields stretched for millions of kilometers, twisted metal and strange organic matter that pulsed with dying energy. Some pieces were recognizable as parts of Krek's battle cruisers or Thrakari war barges, but other chunks defied identification entirely. Commander So Young appeared at Jinwoo's shoulder, her expression grim as she studied the tactical displays. "Captain, those energy readings, whatever did this isn't using any technology in our databases." Before Jinwoo could respond, the communications array crackled to life. Multiple alien voices spoke at once, their universal translators struggling to keep up with the overlapping transmissions. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Taemin of the Galactic Defense Fleet. You are entering a restricted combat zone. Turn back immediately. New contacts, this is Emergency Broadcast Station 7. The sector is under full evacuation order. All civilian traffic must retreat to the inner systems at once. Unidentified ships, whatever you're hauling, it's not worth your lives. The Void Hunters have claimed everything beyond this point." Jinwoo activated the fleet-wide communication system, his voice carrying to every human ship in the formation. "All vessels, this is Captain Jinwoo of the Colonial Defense Force. Maintain formation and prepare for contact protocols." He switched to the general frequency, addressing the alien voices directly. "Galactic Council ships, this is Captain Jinwoo for the human colonial fleet. We received your distress signals 3 months ago. We are here to help." The alien chatter died instantly. For several long seconds, only static filled the comm channels. Finally, Admiral Taemin's voice returned, filled with disbelief. "Did you say human? We have no record of your species in the Galactic Registry." "That's because we've been busy building colonies out in the frontier territories," Jinwoo replied calmly. "We picked up your emergency broadcasts and came as fast as we could. What's the situation?" Lieutenant Dongwoo looked up from his sensor station, his face pale. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures moving this way. Whatever these Void Hunters are, they're big. Really big." The tactical display updated with new contacts. 3 enormous shapes moving through space with impossible grace. They looked like living vessels, their surfaces rippling with organic patterns that hurt to look at directly. Each one was easily the size of a small moon, but they moved with the fluid motion of deep-sea creatures. "Human fleet, you need to retreat now." Admiral Taemin's voice carried a note of desperation. "These entities have destroyed everything we've thrown at them. Our most advanced weapons are useless. They don't just defeat our ships, they consume them." Commander So Young stepped forward, her military bearing evident even through the comm system. "Admiral, with respect, running hasn't solved your problem yet. What can you tell us about their capabilities?" A new voice joined the conversation. Chancellor Yeo Jin of the Galactic Council, speaking from what sounded like a heavily shielded command bunker. "Unknown human commander, these creatures emerged from deep space 2 months ago. They appear to be biomechanical entities that feed on energy and matter. They've consumed 17 star systems already." Do they communicate? Asked Jinwoo, ignoring the shocked murmurs from his bridge crew. Communication implies intelligence that can be reasoned with, came another voice. General Wu Jin of the Thrakari warrior caste. These things are more like cosmic parasites. They hunt, they feed, they move on. Nothing more. Science officer. Mi Young looked up from her analysis station, her expression troubled. Captain, I'm detecting unusual quantum signatures from those vessels. They seem to exist partially outside normal space-time. That might explain why conventional weapons aren't effective. Jinwoo studied the approaching void hunters through the ship's sensors. Unlike the panicked alien fleets, he didn't see unstoppable monsters. He saw a problem that needed solving. Council Fleet, this is Captain Jinwoo. We're not retreating. Send us everything you have on these void hunters. Sensor data, weapon test results, tactical reports. Everything. You don't understand. Admiral Taemin's voice cracked with strain. These aren't ordinary enemies. They've destroyed civilizations that have existed for millions of years. The Zephyrians' psychic powers mean nothing to them. The Krex empires, reality manipulation technology can't touch them. What makes you think your species can succeed where we've failed? Jinwoo exchanged glances with his senior officers. Around the bridge, human faces showed determination instead of fear. They'd spent generations pushing into the unknown frontier, facing dangers that had no names and solving problems that had no precedent. Because, Admiral, Jinwoo replied steadily, we're really good at figuring things out as we go. The void. Hunters continued their approach, their alien forms growing larger on the sensors. But for the first time since the crisis began, something new had entered the equation. The galaxy's established powers had tried to fight these creatures with their traditional strengths and failed. Now it was humanity's turn to try something different. The damaged Void Hunter bioship drifted through space like a dying whale, its organic hull split open by human plasma charges. While the galactic powers watched from their safe distances, Sergeant Donghyun's assault team prepared for something no one had attempted before, boarding one of these nightmare vessels. Remember, we don't know what kind of atmosphere is in. There, Donghyun spoke into his helmet comm as his 12-person team checked their equipment one final time. Keep your environmental suits sealed and watch each other's backs. The boarding pod clanged against the hunter ship's wounded hull, cutting torches immediately beginning their work. Within minutes, they'd burned through layers of what looked like metal but felt disturbingly warm to the touch, almost like living tissue. Private Jamin was first through the breach, his weapon raised and sensors scanning. Sarge, this is wrong. The walls are breathing. Indeed, the corridor they entered pulsed with a slow, rhythmic motion. Veins of light ran along surfaces that seemed to shift between organic and mechanical. The air tasted metallic and somehow sweet, despite their sealed suits. Move forward, stay alert, Donghyun ordered, but even his veteran composure was shaken. The ship's interior defied logic. Passages curved in impossible directions, and the gravity seemed to change orientation. Randomly, engineer Mi Young followed close behind, her portable analysis gear already working overtime. Sergeant, I'm reading massive energy flows through these wall structures. It's like the entire ship is one giant nervous system. They pressed deeper into the vessel, past chambers filled with floating spheres of unknown purpose and rooms where mechanical components grew from the floor like twisted trees. Everything hummed with alien intelligence that felt vast and hungry. Contact ahead, whispered Corporal Sujin from point position, but it's not moving. In a chamber the size of a cathedral, they found their first intact void hunter. The creature hung suspended in a web of cables and tubes, its form shifting between recognizable shapes and geometries that hurt to look at. Parts of it were clearly biological, things that might have been organs or limbs. Other sections were obviously mechanical, with circuits and processors integrated seamlessly into the living tissue. This is incredible, Mi Young breathed, setting up her equipment. It's like they've achieved perfect fusion between organic life and artificial intelligence. While she worked, Donghyun's team secured the area. The ship seemed to be in some kind of dormant state, its systems running on minimal power. Whatever had damaged it had apparently forced it into a kind of sleep mode. Sergeant, I've found something, called out Specialist Hyunwoo from across the chamber. Looks like a control node or interface point. The structure resembled a cross between a computer terminal and a giant flower, its petals opening to reveal surfaces covered in symbols that shifted and changed as they watched. Mi-Young approached cautiously, her scanners working frantically. "The data streams are enormous," she reported. "I'm seeing communication patterns, navigation data, even what might be memories. But there's something else, gaps in the network. Places where the collective consciousness can't reach." Back on the New Soul, Dr. Kyung-ho was making his own discoveries. The tissue samples brought back from previous encounters had revealed secrets that shocked the entire scientific community. Under his microscope, Void Hunter's cellular structure showed clear signs of artificial modification. "Captain Jinwoo, you need to see this," he called out as the senior staff gathered in his makeshift laboratory. The samples were stored in specially shielded containers, but even contained they seemed to pulse with malevolent life. "These aren't natural organisms," Dr. Kyung-ho explained, his voice filled with excitement and horror. "Someone or something modified them. See these structures. Here? They're clearly technological implants, but they've been integrated at the genetic level." Commander So-young leaned in for a closer look. "You're saying these things were created?" "More than that, they were designed as weapons. Perfect biological machines built for one purpose, consuming and converting matter and energy. But here's the interesting part." He highlighted a section of the cellular structure. "The mechanical components follow standard quantum processing protocols, which means they can be hacked," Jinwoo finished, understanding immediately. Meanwhile, deep inside the captured bioship, Mi-Young had managed to establish a limited interface with the alien network. Her portable computer, modified with components salvaged from the ship itself, began translating the data streams. "Dong-hyun, I'm in," she reported. "This thing isn't just a ship. It's part of a massive collective intelligence. They share information instantly across vast distances, but there are individual nodes, processing centers that handle specific functions." The sergeant watched nervously as alien symbols flowed across her jury-rigged display. "Can you disrupt it?" "Better than that, I think I can redirect it. These mechanical components were definitely built by someone else originally. The biological parts were added later, but the underlying computer architecture is actually quite familiar once you get past the alien interface." Across the chamber, the suspended Void Hunter began to stir. Its form shifted, mechanical components whirring to life as biological sections pulsed with renewed activity. "Mi-Young, we need to go. Now." "Just a few more seconds," she replied, her fingers flying over the hybrid controls. "I'm downloading their navigation data and communication protocols. If I can figure out how they coordinate their attacks." The Void Hunter's eyes, or what might have been eyes, opened and fixed on the human intruders. But instead of the malevolent intelligence they expected, there was something else. Confusion. The creature tried to move, but found its systems responding to commands it didn't understand. "Got it," Mi-Young shouted. "I've inserted a feedback loop into their neural network. It's like giving them the equivalent of a massive headache." As they evacuated the bioship, the captured vessel began to convulse. Its systems fought against the alien code Mi-Young had introduced, creating cascading failures throughout its collective consciousness interface. Back in Dr. Kyung-ho's lab, the breakthrough came at exactly 0300 hours. "They're not purely alien," he announced to the assembled fleet commanders via hologram. "Parts of them are mechanical, which means they can be hacked, disrupted, turned against each other." For the first time since the crisis began, humanity had found a weakness in their seemingly invincible enemy. The command deck of the New Soul buzzed with activity as Captain Jinwoo studied the holographic star map floating before him. Red dots marked Void Hunter positions, while blue indicators showed the scattered remnants of galactic civilizations' fleets. What he planned next went against every military doctrine the galaxy had ever known. "You want to do what?" Admiral Taemin's voice crackled through the communicator, disbelief evident even through the static. "Split our forces," Jinwoo repeated calmly. "Send small human units to work alongside each species. We're not going to win this by throwing bigger ships at the problem." A new voice joined the conversation, Chancellor Yo Jin of the Galactics. "Council, speaking from what sounded like a heavily shielded command bunker. Unknown human commander, these creatures emerged from deep space 2 months ago. They appear to be biomechanical entities that feed on energy and matter. They've consumed 17 star systems already. Do they communicate? Asked Jinwoo, ignoring the shocked murmurs from his bridge crew. Commander So-young pulled up tactical displays showing the current deployment of Allied forces. The Thrakari war fleets sat in defensive formations around their fortress worlds, their massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons but refusing to leave their protective positions. The Kreks had retreated behind energy barriers that could withstand supernovas, but did nothing to stop the Hunters' reality-warping attacks. The Zephyrians huddled in their psychic sanctuaries, their collective mind link severed by trauma. Sir, the Thrakari High Command is requesting immediate reinforcement at the Korvan system, reported Communications Officer Ye Jin. They're facing 3 Hunter bioships and refuse to abandon the system. Jinwoo nodded to Commander Jae-sung, who stood ready with his squadron of fast attack craft. Take your ships and link up with General Wu Jin's forces, but don't engage. The Hunters directly. Jae-sung raised an eyebrow. Sir? Show them how to run. Sometimes the best way to win is not to fight. Within hours, Jae-sung's squadron had jumped into the Korvan system, where massive Thrakari battleships sat in a defensive sphere around their colony world. The alien vessels were impressive, each one the size of a small city, covered in enough firepower to level continents. But they weren't moving. Human Commander, General Wu Jin's voice boomed across the comm channels. We appreciate your support, but these positions cannot be abandoned. Thrakari do not flee from battle. General, with respect, I'm not asking you to flee, Jae-sung replied, as his small ships began darting between the massive Thrakari vessels. I'm asking you to hunt. What happened next shocked the watching Thrakari commanders. The approaching Void Hunters, 3 biomechanical nightmares each larger than the biggest Thrakari dreadnought, suddenly found themselves under attack from unexpected directions. Human ships, tiny compared to the alien juggernauts, struck like angry wasps, hitting vital systems and disappearing before return fire could reach them. Now, Jae-sung called out. While they're distracted, hit their neural clusters with everything. You've got. The Thrakari hesitated for only a moment before their warrior instincts took over. Their massive ships broke formation and attacked, but instead of the traditional frontal assault they'd always favored, they struck from multiple angles while the Hunters were still reeling from the human harassment attacks. The results were immediate. One Void Hunter, confused by the coordinated assault, turned on its companions. The feedback virus that human teams had introduced into their collective consciousness was spreading, turning their greatest strength, their shared intelligence, into a weakness. Meanwhile, in the Zephyrian home system, Lieutenant Yunji faced a different challenge. The psychic aliens floated in meditation chambers aboard their crystal ships, their collective consciousness shattered by their first contact with the Void Hunters' alien minds. The touch of their thoughts burns, whispered Mystic Telana, her ethereal form flickering with psychic energy. We cannot link with others while that darkness remains in our minds. Hyunji, herself gifted with minor telepathic abilities that humans had only recently discovered, approached carefully. What if you don't try to fight the darkness? What if you use it? She demonstrated with her own mind, showing the Zephyrians how to compartmentalize the alien intrusion, to treat it not as corruption, but as a weapon that could be turned outward. Instead of trying to cleanse themselves of the Void Hunter mental contamination, they learned to weaponize it. The next time a Hunter bioship approached Zephyrian space, it found itself facing something unprecedented. The psychic race that had always used their abilities for healing and communication suddenly struck with focused mental assault. The alien consciousness, used to absorbing and corrupting other minds, found itself being invaded in return. The Void Hunter ship convulsed as conflicting thoughts tore through its collective awareness. For the first time since the crisis began, one of the nightmare vessels actually retreated. In Krek space, the challenge was different. The technological empire had always solved problems through superior engineering and computational power. Their ships were marvels of efficiency, but they lacked adaptability. Human engineers worked alongside Krek's technicians, showing them something revolutionary: how to build imperfect solutions that could evolve. Instead of creating one perfect weapon system, they developed dozens of experimental devices, each designed to learn from failure and adapt. Chief Engineer Min Jung watched as a Krek scientist named Zek Prime stared at a human-modified plasma cannon that had just successfully penetrated a hunter's bioarmor. "This design is inefficient," Zek Prime admitted, confusion evident in its mechanical voice. "The power coupling is suboptimal, the targeting system is crude, yet it achieved results our perfect weapons could not." "Sometimes good enough right now beats perfect too late," Min Jung explained. "Your people spend months perfecting each design. We build something that works today and improve it tomorrow." The lessons spread throughout Krek's space. Their manufacturing facilities, which had produced the same flawless designs for centuries, suddenly burst with creativity. Dozens of new weapons, ship modifications, and defensive systems appeared daily. Most failed, but the few that succeeded were quickly copied and improved. Word of these victories spread across the galaxy, faster than the Void Hunters themselves. Species that had cowered in terror for months suddenly saw something they'd forgotten. Existed hope. On the bridge of the New Soul, Captain Jin Woo watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The red dots representing hunter forces were no longer advancing unopposed. For the first time, blue dots were moving forward, retaking lost systems. "Captain," Commander So Young reported, "we're receiving victory reports from 17 different sectors. The Thrakari have retaken the outer colonies, the Zephyrians have cleared their home system, and the Kreks are actually pursuing retreating hunter forces." But Jinwoo knew the war was far from over. The Void Hunters were adapting too, learning from their defeats. Their greatest weapon, their collective consciousness, was also their greatest vulnerability. But they were starting to compensate for the human-introduced disruptions. The real test would come when they reached the galaxy's core, where the largest concentration of hunter forces waited. There, all the lessons learned, all the alliances forged, would face their ultimate challenge. The galaxy had learned to fight back, but the Void Hunters were about to show them why they dominated the universe for eons. The space around Galaxis, Prime, the galaxy's capital world, had become a graveyard of broken ships and shattered dreams. The massive Void Hunter mothership hung in the void like a cancerous moon, its biomechanical surface pulsing with the stolen life energy of 1,000 consumed worlds. This wasn't just another hunter vessel. It was their queen, their central intelligence, the beating heart of the collective consciousness that had terrorized the galaxy for months. Admiral Min Ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as the creature's reality-warping attacks tore through the combined fleet like paper. Krek's dreadnoughts, their perfect shields useless, crumpled as space itself twisted around them. Thrakari war barges, proud vessels that had never known defeat, found their weapons firing at targets that existed in different dimensions entirely. "Sir, we've lost the entire 3rd Squadron," reported Captain Su Jin, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The Zephyrian mine ships are trying to maintain our psychic coordination, but that thing is jamming their telepathic network." Through the main viewport, Minho could see the Hunter mothership's true horror. It wasn't just large, it was wrong in ways that made veteran spacers weep. Sections of its hull existed in folded space, allowing it to be in multiple locations simultaneously. Organic weapon pods the size of city blocks sprouted from its surface, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. "All ships, this is Admiral Minho," he spoke into the fleet-wide communication system, his words reaching thousands of vessels from dozens of species. "Today we make our stand not just for humanity, but for every species that calls this galaxy home. Whatever happens here, we face it together." The response was immediate. Voices in 100 different languages acknowledged his transmission. The Thrakari war cry echoed across comm channels. Zephyrian telepaths sent waves of courage through the psychic network. Even the logical Kreks transmitted probability calculations that somehow conveyed hope. But hope wasn't enough. The Hunter mothership's attacks were systematically dismantling. the Allied fleet. Worse, it was learning from each encounter, adapting its tactics in real time as its collective consciousness processed every battle simultaneously. "Admiral, incoming priority transmission from Colonel Eugene," announced the communications officer. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Colonel Eugene on the bridge of her experimental vessel, the Busan Rising. Behind her, human. Technicians worked frantically over jury-rigged control systems that combined human engineering with captured hunter technology. "Admiral, the quantum resonance weapon is ready," she reported, her face grim with determination. "But we'll need to get inside that thing's defensive perimeter to use it effectively." Minho understood immediately. The experimental weapon was designed to disrupt the quantum entanglement that held the hunter collective consciousness together, but it had never been tested on something this massive. More importantly, delivering it would require a suicide run, straight into the heart of the enemy mothership. "Colonel, that's a one-way mission," Minho said quietly. Eugene smiled, and for a moment she looked exactly like the young pilot who had volunteered for humanity's first deep space missions decades. "Go." "Sir, someone has to open the door, might as well be us." Around the battlefield, the situation grew increasingly desperate. A Krex battle group tried to use their reality manipulation technology against the hunter mothership, only to watch in horror as their own weapons were turned against them. The creature's biomechanical hull rippled and adapted, growing new defensive systems specifically designed to counter each attack. "All fighters, form up on the Busan Rising." Eugene's voice echoed across the combat frequencies. "We're going." To give this monster something new to think about. What followed was the most desperate fighter assault in galactic history. Human pilots, flying alongside alien allies in ships barely held together by determination and spare parts, dove straight into the hunter mothership's defensive grid. Thrakari warriors flew beside Zephyrian mystics, their minds linked by human-designed psychic amplifiers. Krex logic fighters adapted their perfect formations to match human chaos tactics. The mothership's defenses were overwhelming. Biomechanical tentacles the size of battleships swatted fighters from space. Energy beams that existed partially outside normal reality vaporized entire squadrons. But for every pilot lost, 2 more took their place. "This is Eugene to all ships," came the transmission as the Busan Rising pushed through the defensive grid, its hull scarred by weapons that shouldn't exist. "Whatever happens next, remember, we chose to stand together. That means something." The experimental cruiser, followed by the surviving fighters, plunged into the hunter mothership's core structure. The interior was a nightmare of organic corridors and mechanical processing centers, all pulsing with the rhythm of the collective consciousness that coordinated the entire hunter fleet. "Weapon armed," reported Eugene's tactical officer. "Sir, the quantum resonance is building beyond safe parameters." "Then let's not keep it waiting," Eugene replied, her hands steady on the controls as she guided her ship toward the massive neural cluster at the mothership's heart. The explosion, when it came, wasn't visible in normal space. The quantum weapon tore through the dimensions that connected the hunter collective consciousness, severing links that had existed since the universe was young. Across the galaxy, every hunter vessel suddenly found itself alone, cut off from the hive mind that had guided them for eons. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Hunter bioships, no longer coordinated by their collective intelligence, turned on each other in confusion. The viral programs that human hackers had introduced months earlier, dormant in their systems, suddenly activated without the central consciousness to suppress them. The massive mothership convulsed as competing thoughts tore through its dying mind. Sections of its biomechanical hull began to fold in on themselves as reality reasserted its normal laws. For the first time since they'd emerged from the void between galaxies, the Void Hunters knew fear. "They're retreating," whispered someone on the command frequency, disbelief evident in their voice. It was true. Across the galaxy, the surviving hunter vessels were fleeing back into the darkness between stars, their collective consciousness shattered beyond repair. The ancient menace that had consumed civilizations for millions of years was broken, reduced to scattered individuals running for their lives. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and damage reports flooded in, something unprecedented happened. Representatives from every species in the galaxy gathered not to debate territory or trade agreements, but to honor the sacrifice of those who had saved them all. The memorial service was held in space above Galaxis Prime, where the wreckage of the Hunter mothership still drifted as a monument to victory. Ships from 100 worlds formed a vast circle, their lights creating a constellation of hope in the darkness. Admiral Minho spoke for humanity, but his words belonged to everyone who had fought. Today we learned that the greatest strength doesn't come from superior weapons or ancient knowledge. It comes from the choice to stand together, no matter the cost. As the ceremony concluded and the fleets began to disperse, something had fundamentally changed in the galaxy. The ancient barriers between species had cracked. Humans, the newcomers who had arrived at civilization's darkest hour, had shown everyone that sometimes the greatest victories come not from those who have the most to gain, but from those who have the most to give. The galaxy would rebuild stronger than before, united by the memory of the day when humanity taught them all that hope could survive even the darkest night. The end.